Welcome to the FinTech Festival in Canada. My name is Sashya D'Souza, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Talent Initiatives at Toronto Finance International. Thank you for joining us. In this third and final session of the festival's Talent Summit, we explore innovative approaches to building a diverse, work-ready pipeline of early talent, both during the pandemic as well as over the long term. And so to that end, we've brought together talent leaders from industry and academia to discuss how they're attracting and preparing the next generation of talent in financial services. You'll hear about initiatives at an organization level, sector-wide collaboration, as well as industry-academia partnerships. And we'll evaluate the impact of our efforts through the eyes of two post-secondary students who are also joining us today. Our discussion is going to proceed in a Q&A format, where I'll first direct questions that the TFI team has prepared to the panelists, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for audience questions. So please feel free to submit your questions through the live Q&A chat box, and we'll get to as many as we can. So with that, let's begin by meeting our panelists. Kavita, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Sashya, for the introduction, and hi to everybody here. My name is Kavita, and I work with Swiss Re in our Canadian offices. I'm an HR business partner, focusing both on our Canadian business as well as our US business.
Thank you, Kavita. Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Sashya. My name is Mike Shelsen, and I am the Global Head of Talent Development and Campus Recruitment at Scotiabank, with our focus on all of our business lines globally.
Thank you. And Mark.
Thanks, Sashya. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Hanna, and I'm the chair for the School of Accounting and Financial Services at Seneca College, and really looking forward to the discussion today. Thanks.
Carla.
Thanks, Sashya. Hello, everyone. I'm Karla Badger-Brown. I'm the director of Aspire. That's a work integrated learning pilot program that is led by Toronto Finance International in partner with 20 financial services organizations and 43 schools, post-secondary schools across the country.
Thank you, Carla. And we will meet our two students. Alice?
Hi, everyone. My name's Alice. I am completing my third year of chemical engineering studies at the University of Toronto. I'm so excited to be here. I was actually the Aspire Challenge finalist in the 2018-2019 year. And I guess fun fact, I was born in Singapore, born and raised in Singapore. So this is honestly really surreal for me to be here right now.
Thank you, Alice. We're excited to have you with us. And finally, Jeneta.
Thank you, Sashya. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeanette Lui, and I'm a fourth-year student at McMaster University studying actuarial and financial mathematics.
Thank you all for participating. Let's get started with our first theme, which is student attraction. So Mike, my first question is over to you, and it's getting into the area of skills, the skills that we need. So specifically, what fields of study has Scotiabank been hiring from over the past 3 years? Has there been a shift in the skills that you're seeking, particularly as your organization increasingly leverages technology and innovation to drive growth, which is a common theme for our organizations across the financial services sector?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sashya. That's a great question. You know, I think often about the impact of hiring different skill sets in our organization. In fact, I really believe I wouldn't be in this job if it wasn't for the fact that we've seen a massive explosion when it comes to the different types of profiles that we're looking to hire off of campus, specifically those profiles in the tech space. And so why I say that is because if I rewind, you know, you mentioned 3 years ago, if I go back maybe 4 years ago when I took this role on, I would say that the financial industry in general in Canada was largely focused on a lot of what I would call traditional talent, right? And this talent would be, you know, those studying business in business schools. Business schools even took a different approach to how they educated their talent in the business school. And so we were all pretty good at hiring that talent. It's really the focus towards some of our, you know, the STEM talent, you hear that word often, STEAM talent now. And so we started brand new programs. Those programs had a a bit of a snowball effect. So we started with a tech program, and that led to programs across all of our different business lines, whether they're directly involved in technology or whether they're core business lines in our organization. And one of the things that we noticed is that as more and more of our different subsets or lines of businesses were getting interested in hiring tech talent, and the reason why they were is simply because what they were finding is we're getting a new perspective. We're all learning new ways of working, and they seem to be at the forefront of this. But as they started opening their eyes to more tech talent, it demanded more tech programs and it demanded more talent development programs, because as you can imagine, bringing people in from different backgrounds and having them come in and try to learn a more of a traditional business line, we had to fill that knowledge gap. And so we've seen a massive explosion in hiring this STEM talent in our traditional fintech spaces, like our digital factories at Scotiabank, for example, of course, but even into core business lines. And one of the nice things about it, if you ask me, is the programs and the way that our managers across our business lines looked at hiring as a result of the influx of tech talent actually has reached into areas like core inclusivity and diversity. And why that is, I think, is because we saw, wait a second, if we bring in people who have a tech background and we're able to accelerate their careers and fill some of those gaps, let's say in our tech development programs and our core development programs, what else can we do? And so we've reached out and we've been able to hire people across all segments, and it's opened the eyes of our business managers to be able to say, maybe I should look at non-traditionals. Maybe I should look in new places, because maybe what we're after is less of a knowledge when you're thinking about next-gen talent, and maybe what we're really after is more of a skill set, a focus on problem solving, a focus on a different point of view, and so on and so forth. So that sort of technology boom when it comes to talent has had much further of a reach than just hiring into traditional tech roles in our organization. And really, it's reached everywhere, even into the D&I space.
Thank you, Mike. That's great. That's a great backdrop for the rest of our discussion. Kavita, I want to ask you the next question, and it's related. Mike's done a good job of outlining the kinds of skills, and I think they represent, although that Mike was speaking from Scotiabank's perspective, they represent what the sector is looking for. And so, Kavita, I want to ask you, when we think those are the skills we're trying to attract, what are some of the challenges that we've had, that the sector's had, that Swiss Re's had over the past few years in attracting students learning these kinds of skills, these kinds of in-demand skills? What have we been up against over the past few years?
Yeah, great question, Sashya. And it absolutely is a challenge. So I think Mike has clearly outlined that these STEM skills, these STEM professionals have really started to become an integral part of our workforce, right? And so this has opened a whole slew of new opportunities for STEM professionals. And from their perspective, doors are being opened at companies that perhaps wouldn't have been part of the equation before. So that's quite exciting. I do feel Canada has a strong talent base, specifically if you look in Ontario and close to home, that Toronto, Kitchener, Waterloo region is really a large producer of STEM graduates. But despite this, I still find that Canadian financial services firms are competing the talent, and they're not competing against each other. But of course, we've got those traditional tech firms that we need to compete against, the Googles and the Apples of this world. And now we've got the FinTech startups that are coming up, and they're more smaller, but they're absolutely becoming more attractive. We're continuing to lose talent to the US, right? So we've got some of the big giants that I just mentioned. But then some of these Canadian fintechs are starting to be acquired by these US companies, and that then also starts to take the talent away from local. So studies have shown that STEM students are aware of financial services firms, but they don't necessarily identify these firms as ones that they would consider working upon graduation. And that's really what we need to change and look at. So let's maybe think about why this may be. And I think we've heard time and time again, I've certainly heard it, the negative perceptions that perhaps STEM students have of our industry. You know, we're too hierarchical, we're less nimble, slow progression, boring culture, the lack of technological advancement, you know, limited clarity on an individual's value. And I truly think that list goes on. So although financial services may be able to offer pay and in some cases stability, I think what some of the other companies are doing is using some of these non-financial benefits to attract employees. These are companies that are quite purpose-driven. So what they do makes a difference, and they're easily be able to show that. They can easily show their purpose and their value. And I think employees want to be associated with a brand that is able to do that. A lot of these companies are fairly flat. They have agile teams. They have the ability for employees to move from one project to another, and they don't let those traditional organizational structures and those reward structures get in the way of this. And that's maybe a disadvantage that some of the financial institutions have, because we're large, we have a lot of history, and therefore we're quite traditional in size and nature, and it doesn't quite flow with what some of these new graduates are looking for. Some of these companies are absolutely leveraging technology, and they actually are able to use that technology to enhance the employee experience. So managing an employee's benefits, their learning and development, seeing internal career opportunities, having feedback at their fingertips. They want to see that technology is also being leveraged not only for the customer, but for themselves as employees as well. And I say all this, and I want to add that positive piece in. So I'm not saying that financial services firms don't offer any of the above. I actually think we've made a real shift, and we're starting to offer everything that I've just described. The problem is we've not easily recognized that these are some of the top things that we need to rave about when it comes to attracting this next gen talent. And so we need to change that shifting, that shift, I guess. And we're starting to see that shift. We're starting to see financial services firms, the banks, the insurance companies really understand what's important to a graduate and start to sort of really leverage and rave about some of those items.
Thank you, Kavita. I love that answer. And let's continue to build this story. So we've talked about the skills that we need in the sector, some of the challenges that we as organizations are coming across to get those skills. But I know there are a lot of success stories. And I know that both your organizations and your industries are showing progress in this space. So I want to keep on this stream and turn back to you, Mike, and ask, so how are you attracting these skills? What is Scotiabank doing? What are some of the programs that you have that's been successful?
Probably shouldn't be on mute, but Kavita, you mentioned we're kind of old rusty dinosaurs in the eyes sometimes of some of these STEM talent, right? Some of the STEM students that are out there. And we've done a lot. We as an industry have done a lot over the last little while in Canada specifically around how do we change that? How do we change that perception? Kavita mentioned the fact that there's a lot of good stuff that we do, but I don't know that STEM students in general are necessarily thinking of us that way. One of the major advantages of working in this industry is just the breadth of different opportunities you have. So, I always go back, I'm an accountant by trade. And so I think about if I wanted to go and hire accountants, I'd probably want to have a whole bunch of accountants go and hire these accountants, right? What is an accountant? Accountant is someone who maybe is reluctant to change. Accountant is maybe someone who is very technical, maybe not the best with people, right? And so now I send out a whole bunch of these people who are reluctant to change, technical, not great with people, to go and hire what? Technical, not great with people, into your organization. And if you do that for a while, and we've seen some of this in some of the big four and how they've shifted their own, the way that they've recruited, what happens is you're just going to continually bring more and more and more of the same into your organization. What we've realized in the financial industry is that it would be the same thing for us. If we were to go and send a whole bunch of bankers to go and hire traditional bankers, then you're never going to be able to appeal to this STEM talent. So I think first of all was how do we change our approaches so that they reflect some of these advances in technology? So, we no longer, at Scotiabank, I'll speak specifically to one of the things we're doing. We no longer accept student resumes, right? For any job across the organization. And why this is cool is because, and I love Alice's face, and she's like, oh my gosh, right? So that's the proof, because at the end of the day, the students go, wait a second, that's a little bit different, and then they want to know why. And when they start to find out that the reason is because we don't want to pigeonhole you to what you can do based on what you studied for 4 years in school, because I can tell you right now, Jeneta and Alice will be the first ones to tell us when they graduate, they're going to feel like they know this much. It's really after working for a couple years that they're going to feel like they actually start to handle it and they can get it their sea legs under them, right? And so from my perspective, get rid of the resumes. Stop trying to say, you studied that or this, or you've got these experiences and that's what's going to speak to you. That gets students looking at us differently. Gets them to say, why, what's up with that? And then we layer on technology. So we layer on, for example, we use Plum, but I mean, this is not an endorsement for Plum. There are many technologies that are out there. And when you think about that, what this does also from a student's perspective, it gets them to think like, wow, Scotiabank is assessing us a little bit differently. Scotiabank is using technology the right way. So, it allows them to see us in a good light. And then what we're able to do is put forward some of the awesome work we've done in the background, developing technology programs in the organization. So those are really important because what I find is doesn't matter if you're a STEM student, core business, actuarial sciences, right, Jeneta? You really, at the end of the day, no matter what you're studying, you want to have a career with work-life balance. You want to have a rewarding career. You want to be paid well for what you do, right? Or else you wouldn't dare go to all those boring classes, right? And you want to make sure at the end of the day that you love what you do. You feel like you're contributing. Kavita talked about purpose-driven. So it's telling the story. But one thing everyone has in common, no matter what you're doing, is you want a career path. You want to know what you're doing, especially early days. And so I find that when I first got into campus recruitment, the startups had a real almost cachet when it came to, hey, I could go there and do something exciting, right? But maybe what they didn't offer is that career path. Maybe what they didn't offer is the work-life balance that people wanted. And so what I find is what we've been able to do is say, how can we create different opportunities in our organization that offer some of the advantages of these startups? But how can we still offer some of the things that we've been offering for hundreds of years for our people, which is really great pay, really great benefits, really great culture, stable jobs, and career paths that'll take you up to leadership. And when you look at our leadership table now, only just a few years into the conversation, we have so many tech talent executives that are doing non-tech roles. And that is a massive, massive beacon to students who are in technology and say, wow, I want to do a whole bunch of different things. Because the one thing I think we can all agree on STEM talent is that they're curious by nature. And that curiosity is what enables them to want to try new things. And they want to know that the options are out there. So the last thing I'll say on my answer is the currency for students, no matter what you're studying, but I find it even more so with tech students, the currency they're after is opportunity. That's what speaks their language. So you have to build those opportunities.
Thanks, Mike. And those are definitely progressive approaches that we just didn't see 10 years ago in this sector. And I think it's working. Obviously, we see the numbers going up. Kavita, you represent a very interesting consortium that's happening in the insurance industry to attract students. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sashya. So the example that Mike just shared, and as you said, some really sort of out of the box thinking ideas. It was very much at the Scotiabank level. But what I'd like to share, something different that we've done in the insurance industry, is really been at that consortium level. So we quickly realized that the insurance industry has an even sort of more challenging battle when it comes to sort of attracting that diverse talent that we look for, because we are not only up against some of those tech companies, but our biggest giant is sort of other organizations and more larger organizations within financial services, namely the bank, the pension firms, the consulting firms, and so forth. So already the insurance industry has perhaps been lagging behind when it came to attracting talent, because let's be honest, often when anyone has any interaction with insurance, it's a negative experience, right? But we've had to find a way of changing the perception of what insurance looks like. And we realized sort of within Swiss Re that we weren't going to be able to do that on our own. We're so small. We thought perhaps we can join forces with others in our industry. So we sort of started to think about where are some of the areas that we want to focus. So STEM background, we've heard it all. It's a huge focus for us and many other organizations. But we've also recognized that women are underrepresented within our industry. So for us, women with that STEM background is a small talent pool, and it's a competitive talent pool. And so what we did was Swiss Re co-founded the WeSTEM program. It's the Women in Insurance STEM program. And it's an industry first program in Canada, which is super exciting. And what it does is it provides insurance internships to female Canadian university students that are studying a STEM program. But where the innovation comes in is this is not a program that is run by Swiss Re alone. It's not an internal rotational program or an internal development program that we hear about and that are quite common. This is a program that partners with others in the industry, and together we've come together to create opportunities and attract talent that we potentially haven't been able to attract before. So with the help of Aspire, Sashya and Karla, you know that we created WeSTEM. We launched in early 2019, and we launched it with 7 major insurance companies in Canada. So we've got Swiss Re, Aon, Aviva, Manulife, RBC Insurance, Sun Life Financial, and Travelers. Okay, and together our goal is to diversify our talent pool in the industry. So our interns basically go through a minimum of 2 formal internship programs with 2 of the 7 founding companies. So they rotate between our organizations. And what we do is we give them the opportunity to have meaningful work. We have access to a mentor in the industry, and we put them through a curriculum to continue to develop their soft skills and the leadership capabilities that we've identified as an industry are critical for the future. And of course, the ultimate goal is to hire these individuals full time. And I want to note that majority of the roles that these interns are placed in are not the traditional insurance roles that you think of. They're not underwriting, they're not claims, they're not risk, I should say, but they're roles in data science, they're roles in innovation labs, software development, business intelligence. So things that sound a lot more sexy and cool when it comes to that insurance industry. And what we're starting to see is we're attracting talent that potentially may have pursued a different career path. And we're offering something valuable. We're offering them the opportunity to come in and explore the industry, work with 2 different companies from a rotational standpoint. And by doing that, we actually show them how big and diverse the industry is. We've got brokerage companies, we've got the commercial and personal insurance companies, and then we've got the reinsurance companies like Swiss Re. Many students don't even realize that reinsurance exists. And more importantly, what we try to show them is that insurance is really a fundamental backbone of the economy. And if you really think, there's really not one thing that we can do without insurance, whether it's stepping out of a house, getting into a car, getting on a plane, right? It is the backbone of our economy, and we start to show how their skill set can really make a difference towards our economy, our lifestyle, and what it is that we do, sort of every day. So the program is almost 2 years in. It's going really well. We're continuing to grow. We're continuing to develop that talent. And I hope that in a couple of years, I'll be sitting here in a similar panel, maybe talking about taking that program to another level, and maybe even internationally. So it's super exciting for the insurance industry.
Thank you so much, Kavita. I'm such a big fan of that program. I think it's awesome. And again, it's such an example of innovation. Okay, so we've had an example at an organizational level of strategies the financial services is putting in place to attract talent. We've had an example at a consortium level. Karla, I'd now like you to give us an example of a sector level initiative that we are doing. Can you tell us about Aspire?
Absolutely, Sashya, and thanks for this opportunity. So as I mentioned in my introduction, we partner with financial services organizations and post-secondary institutions to really help build the pipeline of in-demand work-ready talent in financial services through our Aspire program. And when we started out on this journey, we heard from employers. They said, attraction is absolutely one of our top priorities. And as Mike mentioned in his intro, he said, you know what? In the last 3 to 5 years, we've really started to look at different types of talent. And the challenge was that, as Kavita and Mike both mentioned, most of the talent that our financial services partners were looking for were are from STEM backgrounds. They have other in-demand skills, and they were saying, they have boring cultures, they're old and stale. Mike used the word old rusty dinosaurs. And so we really needed to change it up. We needed to say, okay, well, how do we attract a new type of talent to the sector? And so we decided to really focus on this idea of innovation. There are all these fantastic innovations coming out of the financial services sector, and there was an opportunity for us to rebrand what it looks like. So we've done a few things. We've created an introduction to financial services video that we launched that really showcases that innovation and why students would want to be a part of it. We've created some fun banners and posters to help dispel some of those myths and inaccurate information. So, for example, one of our messages was, hey, financial services isn't innovative, says the guy who just tapped his chip card to purchase fish tacos. We've been featuring students like Jeneta and Alice in these student spotlights to really try to showcase that, hey, students from STEM fields can find interesting opportunities in financial services, and that there's this breadth of opportunities. And then we've hosted a number of events, and whether they're in person or this year they're virtual, to really uncover opportunities. And we often feature in these webinars and events individuals working in financial services who have really cool, innovative careers in fields like AI and cryptocurrency and the Internet of Things. And oftentimes we get great attendance at these events. So at our last one in April, 44% of the students attending were actually from STEM programs. But I want to highlight, as Sashya pointed out, one key program that we've launched, and it's called the Aspire Challenge. It's sector-led, it's innovative, and it's a multifaceted work-integrated learning initiative. And it's really designed to reach that untapped talent pool, that being post-secondary second-year students who maybe haven't made up their minds about where they want to go after graduation yet, and also those coming from non-traditional financial services fields who maybe wouldn't even considered this as the sector to be in. And so the Aspire Challenge was designed to be, the application phase, to be very open-ended, to just simply ask second-year students to come up with a challenge that they see in their community and to think of a solution. Students who make it forward to the finals are invited to a weekend in Toronto, Canada. They get the opportunity to visit financial services workplaces. They get opportunities to participate in workshops that help build these in-demand skills like design thinking. They compete in some competitions, and they get to network with employers. And at the end, they have an opportunity to potentially earn a summer internship with one of our financial services partners. So we've been really pleased with the Aspire Challenge. I'm sure Alice is on the panel. She'll be able to tell you more about her experience. And so I'm going to pass it back to you, Sashya.
Thank you, Carla. And yes, we've invited an Aspire Challenge finalist, Alice, to participate in our discussion. And so Alice, let's talk about impact. You're a chemical engineering student who completed an interesting internship last year at OMERS, as you said in your introduction, one of Canada's largest pension plans. Can you share your experience in the role and how it's changed your perception as a STEM student, a target student, of financial services as a career destination?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Sashya, for this. I think at OMERS, I was a part of the digital transformation team that modernized their way of working within HR, and it was truly a unique experience as I was exposed to so many different like HR functions and business units that I honestly didn't even know existed. The learning curve is quite steep coming from someone with the STEM background, but I was grateful to work with such a supportive team and welcoming colleagues. As a STEM student who did not have any prior experience in the business world, I was expecting a lot of work and work that no one wants to do. But my role was truly one that was most exciting to me, I was given the opportunity to learn and be exposed to a number of business technologies and ways of working. So SharePoint, Power BI, Workday, Oracle, SAP, these are some technologies that I used and learned about to support my daily work. When I also worked really closely with my team, business partners, and consultants, I was able to learn and develop several soft skills like agile thinking, communications, critical thinking. These are skills that I feel can only be developed through experience and is definitely not taught in school. I also remember having like so many coffee chats with various people in OMERS that helped me understand how a large organization works. So at one point, I even remember having a networking session with the former CEO, Michael Latimer. That was probably one of the most nerve-wracking moments of my life, but one that taught me how to think like a CEO. My role is to support a team in charge of planning, communicating, and procuring HR technology for the entire organization, whether it was communicating like important milestones to C-suite executives or analyzing current workflow with various data sets. I always felt that the work I did was challenging and fulfilling. This is what changed my perspective of the financial services, and it is not at all boring work, and that is something that STEM students may need to realize sooner than later, honestly. I also think that the more exposure STEM students have towards this reality, the more they can find themselves interested in this industry. I think before Aspire, I wanted nothing to do with the financial services. I wanted to stick with the technical aspects of engineering. But since Aspire Challenge, I started thinking like a CEO, thinking about my different career opportunities. I've tried creating my own company, my own engineering consulting club. And really, this is also that perhaps I can also help students be more exposed to career opportunities that they didn't even know existed. So overall, I think the Aspire Challenge changed my view of the financial sector, and I really hope that more students can learn about it and use it to be more informed about greater possibilities.
Thank you so much, Alice. That is so encouraging to hear, because that's what we've been trying to do as a sector. So thank you for sharing your experience. Mark, I want to, before we end the talent attraction piece, I do want to talk about the international talent, because we know that that's an important part of our pipeline. And so, Mark, my next question is to you. What are the main strengths of Canadian post-secondary institutions? Why is Canada a popular study destination for international students, regardless of the temporary impact of the current global pandemic on international enrollment? Over to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Sashya. Appreciate it. And thanks to everyone so far for the great comments. So Canada, first of all, itself as a country is very diverse and multicultural. So I think that is a definite attraction for international students. On top of that, we have first-class financial service institutions, and we've heard some representatives from them today. And as you can also hear, the financial institutions are recognizing, the winds of change and are looking to make changes to their talent acquisition. And so what's also positive about post-secondary institutions, particularly the colleges, is that we're very closely aligned with our industry partners. And so as these institutions are evolving, we are evolving with them and looking to make changes that would sort of meet their demands. So that would include everything from, creating new programs. So like we have a FinTech program that we've created that we're very proud of, and that addresses that, those new issues. I love the discussion about sort of the interdisciplinary aspect of things, of non-traditional hiring. And so we're also looking to model, while students are on campus or sort of studying, they would engage in projects that would sort of, match technology students with the accounting students and sort of start to work on projects that would also be industry focused. We also try to make sure we have technology across all of our programs. So again, to make sure that technology is being addressed. And really all this creates a situation where our graduates feel much more job ready. And so I think, Mike mentioned the idea that often when you graduate, this is how much you know, and we're hopefully making it, a little bit wider in terms of some of the experiences that they've had before they get on campus. And I think the other pieces around, the soft skills that, that's another theme that's really, been addressed. And, to Alice's point, often that's really, achieved by experiences. And so we're looking to identify experiential opportunities for students, again, while they're studying with us. And that can be things like developing, industry projects. We'll be talking a little bit later in this session about micro-credentials. And then partnering with TFI, for example, on the Aspire Edge program, where we can offer students, that experience and really get, an opportunity to develop those skills as well. So I think, again, the closeness that we have with the industry, where we can literally pick up the phone or have a meeting and for example, even most recently talk about the impact of the pandemic and talk about how the world of work is changing, in light of the pandemic. Obviously, we want to be able to speak to our students about that today, not a year from now or not 2 years from now. So the currency, I think, and the connection with the industry is really a major strength that we are proud of.
Thank you so much, Mark. Keeping on the topic of the pandemic, because that's all anybody can really talk about this year, I do want to ask one question, Mike, about that. How has the pandemic shifted your early talent strategies and plans over the short term? What changes will endure post-pandemic and into the next normal?
Yeah, I'm super passionate about this one, Sashya, because I'll go back to what we just talked about, a couple minutes ago. You think about, I'll use Scotiabank just because I happen to work there, but I would say this of many of the players in this industry, right? Like Scotiabank is the 15th biggest bank in the world. We're one of the 100 largest public companies in the world. If we're trying to say that our industry is different, if we're trying to appeal to Jeneta and Alice in a different way, and one of the 100 largest companies in the world can't nail a really great virtual student experience, what hope do we have, right? Like that's the way I look at it. What hope do we have? And so we had this conversation with our leadership going into the pandemic. So, I think it was about March 13th, I think, here in Canada, where a lot of us, especially on Bay Street, we all sort of said like, okay, things are changing, we're going home. And at that point, you could imagine someone like me, what went through my mind, the first thing that went through my mind is student jobs. What's happening, right? Are we keeping the student jobs? Are they going to be okay? And it comes from a compassionate spot at first, because I think about every student and I'm thinking they have an expectation of income from us, right? We don't do unpaid internships. All of these internships are well-paid jobs. And so this helps to pay for their tuition and so on and so forth. So that was my first reaction. And I remember the conversation with leadership, and I approached it with our CHRO, and her immediate response was one that will stay with me forever, which was, I basically said to her flat out, are we keeping our interns? What do we do? And we hire upwards of 600 interns, right, in the summer alone. And so and I'm just talking about corporate offices. I'm not even talking about branches, and I'm not talking about global offices, just in Toronto. And she said to me, Mike, absolutely we are, right? We can worry now in the coming months about what that looks like, but absolutely, we've made a commitment to our people. So it's not only about doing the right thing, but it's about understanding the value of these people to our organization. We know we're going to come through the pandemic. We know we're still going to need future leaders, and that's what our students are for us. And so that was just really a great thing to hear, because for someone like me, that's winded my sails. Now it's like, okay, man, go and create something great for these people, because my leaders are empowering me. If I don't, that's shame on me, right? So as a team, we set out to build a really great virtual experience. And what we did is we said, let's not think about what our competitors are doing. Let's not. We don't have time for that. All we want to do is, we don't want to follow a template. We want to make the template. All right. So we sat down, we set a working group together, my team and I. We would meet for 5 hours a day, every single day, until the students started at the beginning of May. And we did that. And every day we started building stuff. We coded our own platform, because we've got those tech skills. So we coded our own platform so that students could come in and take advantage of this platform. It could be one size fits all. We went to our onboarding team and we said, listen, and actually this is when I started to hear from some of our competitors who would say things like, we're going to delay our students for a month, or we won't have technology. And I went to my team and I said flat out, guys, that's not an option. We need, we are one of the largest banks. We have to lead by example here. And so we had mailed out all of our laptops. Everyone was ready to go. Our VPN was ready to go, everything, so that our students could start on day one. We created an entire virtual onboarding. We created a full month-long program, because we thought that month of May right to the end, right to the beginning of June, we thought would be the most crucial. We wanted a complete 30-day virtual program and what that would look and feel like, bringing everybody together. We needed it to be flexible for the different business lines and so on and so forth. And most importantly, we needed to have a focus on things like wellness and things like mental health, because now students are doing this for the first time and it can be stressful and difficult, this whole brand new world. And so we created this thing. And what I loved about it is there was not an ounce of make busy work. There was not an ounce of sort of fluff. It was all about how do we provide a great experience, but that our students are still contributing to what we do. And so I would say for our brand, that was one of our biggest sort of shots in the arm. That students went through this, and then later we're saying, we called it Altitude. That was what we named the program. And so, you know, students went through it, and the feedback we got, they became our culture evangelists, because they were posting on LinkedIn all the time about, wow, like I just had this today, and my friends in this other industry, they had their job cut. You know, and that's a really powerful message that here we are going above and beyond to offer that. Now, your second part of your question there, Sashya, like how does it have legs, right? Like what continues on in the future as we go? Absolutely, it does. The coolest thing is that Altitude is now, then we launched Altitude in the US, then we launched it in the UK. Now we're looking at it in Latin America. So not only does it have legs during the pandemic, but this is going to be our new normal, even post-pandemic. We're all like, when's that going to happen? But post-pandemic, we know that we're still going to be Altitude. That is still going to be an offering for all of our people just because of the amazing onboarding experience it offers. Does it need to be a full month long? Does it need to have legs for 4 months to their entire term? It doesn't necessarily, but it's that flexibility of being able to work around the different business lines, the different types of people, and what it is that they need. And the best piece of feedback I got from the whole thing, Sashya, was when students would say to me at the end, Mike, the stuff that you brought us here, the things that we learned, the exposure we had to leadership, is something we could have never gotten in class. And that's why, you know, us working with people like Mark, for example, at Seneca, and knowing that we've got sort of we're both, let's say, focused on the same thing, which is how do we best prepare our talent to succeed. I think those are the outcomes that we're really seeing from this pandemic and the reaction to it that will live on for every organization.
Thank you for that, Mike. I actually, last week I was looking for something else and I came across some videos of students speaking on Altitude, and they were powerful. I mean, you guys are definitely making an impact based on what they were saying. That was our first theme, student attraction. I want to pivot to the second theme in our webinar, which is preparing students for the workforce. And what I mean by that is we're attracting STEM's talent and other tech talent, and that's absolutely critical, but there's also another side, and employers often talk about there still being a skills gap when students transition from school to the workplace. And so, Kavita, I want to ask you this next question. When you think about the students that are coming to Swiss Re and to the insurance industry and financial services more broadly, to what extent are they work ready? What are they missing, and how are you solving for that?
Yeah, thanks, Sashya. So I think all of us will agree that when it comes to those in-demand skills, those STEM skills that we think about, we immediately think about the strong technical skills that can be helped to apply to innovation, to technology, and really what our future looks like. But I think the other piece to remember is all of these technologies and all of these innovative products have to still resonate with the customer, have to resonate with the clients, have to resonate with us. And so we're really looking for talent who are able to show those technical skills. They've got those intellectual skills that are needed in order to build and create. But they also need to have the emotional intelligence to be able to really understand the changing preferences of our customers. We need them to be able to work with employees all around the globe with different cultures, and now they need to be able to do that remotely. So they need to be adaptable to all of this. And so the theme here is that the technical skills have to be complemented by that strong soft skill set. And we often see that perhaps that is where the gap is. but by far what they bring to the table from a technical standpoint is really new, it's innovative, and that's partially why we're hiring them. But it's the soft skills that we need to pay a little bit more attention to when it comes to sort of closing that gap. So communication skills, absolutely critical. There's one thing to be able to build something, but you've then got to be able to explain what it does. You've got to be able to speak to the customers to figure out whether or not it's actually meeting their needs. Collaboration, so being able to consult with other teams, with business partners, with other stakeholders, and being able to do that effectively and efficiently. Persuasion, negotiation. The more diverse talent that we bring in, the more maybe those skill sets start to be required in order to be able to then reach conclusions and way forward. Problem solving, that's another one that goes without saying. And then I think if I think about recently, if I think over the last 8 months and sort of our interns that we've also had join us virtually, resiliency, likely one of the top skills that we're going to see all employers seeking for in their talent going forward. It's really been tested, and I think it's raised a new awareness around what that looks like, not only in new and next gen talent, but also talent like ourselves that have been in the workforce for some while. And then coming back to sort of Mark and his perspective, I think, Mark, you'd probably agree, it is often a challenge to keep up with what it is that the workforce is looking for. So you've got students out there that are either, they've got skills that are no longer relevant, or they don't have the right skills for what it is we're looking for. So that gap is going to continue to be there. How are organizations like ourselves trying to fill that? So I would say at Swiss Re personally, we kind of look at it twofold. And when you think about building talent capabilities, you think of that sort of buy and the build. So there are some capabilities that you have to buy, right? And often the tech piece is where that buy comes in. But then there are other capabilities that you want to try and build, and maybe that's where the soft skills come in. So at Swiss Re, we continue to leverage in-house programs that we have that focusing some of those soft skills. And I've seen a shift even in the time that I've been at Swiss Re at how those programs are being delivered and what they look like. So some will still continue to be classroom-based and more recently virtual classroom-based. But at Swiss Re, we're really seeing an increased demand from our employees and our younger generational talent at having learning at their fingertips. So they want that one-stop shop for learning, and they want to be able to access that learning at any time and from any device. And we leverage, where possible, tools and programs that are already out there. So at Swiss Re, we have something called Learning One. It is almost a one-stop shop, as I described, and it pulls in both internal programs and courses and so forth that may be available, but then we absolutely have access to LinkedIn Learning, for example, to be able to pull in some of those other skill trainings that we need. All of it can be accessed online. You can do it on the phone, on your phone when you're traveling, which I know right now is quite limited, but it's there and it's at their fingerprints whenever they want it. The other thing that we do is we absolutely want to leverage any type of external programs that we can have, and where possible, we want to use the consortium approaches, and that's where Aspire Edge comes in. And I know, Carla, you're going to be speaking about Aspire Edge shortly, but we found it to be a fantastic tool that really allows students and that newer talent to develop the skills that we value: communication, problem solving, critical thinking, teamwork. Without any of that, the tech skills alone are not going to take us far. And then financial service employers like myself, like Mike, we've helped to sort of design that program and develop that program. And so now we're truly leveraging it to help and train and developing our talent. One more example, so coming back to WeSTEM, the program that we have launched within the insurance industry, the Aspire Edge is a critical component of the learning and development curriculum that I spoke about earlier. So we do have our WeSTEM interns complete the program, and they move through the tiers of the program at the appropriate pace. But we've also been lucky enough to sort of engage Carla, you and your team to kind of come in and host some of these virtual soft skills sessions as a way of really helping us develop the skill set that they need in the future.
Thank you, Kavita. And that's a good segue. This conversation has been so interesting that the hour is just flying by, but I want to stay on this skills gap section for a bit more. So Carla, over to you. Kavita has introduced the Aspire Edge. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about what that program is specifically?
Absolutely, Sashya. And I actually feel like I don't even have to say much because Kavita just gave a wonderful introduction. So yes, the Aspire Edge was designed with that thought in mind, where we said, okay, employers, what does it take for a student to be work ready? And overwhelmingly, they came back to us and said, we really want to help build those soft skills. They're learning all the great technical skills at schools like Seneca, where Mark is, but help us build the soft skills. And so actually over the last year, and with the help of employers, even like Kavita, who's featured in a video in the Aspire Edge, we built out an online business skills development program. And it's a really interesting experience because it's set up as an online simulation where students are thrown into this fictional financial services company. It's called NextGen Financial Services. And they get a chance to explore and develop those soft skills through real life workplace scenarios. And so, as Kavita mentioned, we have built this program to put students through 3 tiers. They start out as an analyst, and they start to learn skills around communication, even simple things like email etiquette. They build some basic data acumen because we've all heard, and in FinTech, being able to understand data is important. And they start to develop those resiliency skills by throwing monkey wrenches at them, and they have to overcome them. They then advance through the program in tiers 2 and 3, where they become part of a special team. They get thrown in to design a solution to a problem. And then eventually they become a new manager trainee, and they're challenged to develop their leadership skills and to really help to understand how to work with their team, to delegate and to manage conflict. So yes, the program was launched in July. It's pandemic proof because it's online, and we're really pleased. We have about 1,300 students who've enrolled in the program thus far. 700 are actively participating, and we're now up to about close to 150 graduates of the program. And what's great is that those who complete the full program, they get a chance to earn a digital badge that they can post on their social media channels. And this gives them a chance to be able to showcase their achievement to employers like Mike and Kavita, who are looking for talent that don't just have technical skills, but also have shown that they've developed those soft skills that are going to make them successful in the workplace.
Thank you so much, Carla. And it's one thing for us to build a program and hope that they'll come and hope it'll be of value, but let's hear from a student, a student's perspective of, is the edge working? Is it hitting its mark? And so Jeneta, you're a mathematics and statistics student who completed an 8-month internship with us. And so obviously we would have hoped you would have liked the EDGE program because you helped to build it, but you really became an advocate of the program since doing it. And so I'm interested in your perspective. What did you find so valuable about the EDGE, and what do you know that others, after completing it, that other students don't?
Thanks, Sashya. I've definitely become a strong advocate for the Aspire Edge, and that's honestly because of how valuable I found it to be during my internship experience. I actually started it at the beginning of my internship, and this was actually my first co-op experience ever, working in a professional environment. And like Kavita and Karla mentioned, I come from a STEM background, so I had those technical skills. However, I think I was still lacking in some of those, soft skills that are necessary for a professional environment. And so I was really thankful that I started this program, because in Tier 1, I learned a lot about the, business etiquette and do's and don'ts that you should know when starting a professional work experience that, people who've worked in the industry may know already, but it's not so obvious to students. And, I learned things like creating an effective email and preparing a verbal synopsis, also preparing a formal presentation, all skills that really fortified my communication skills, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And I'm really glad because now I can take that with me in future work opportunities. But also, I think that the Aspire Edge is helpful for any student, not just those who are starting their work experience or their first professional job experience. I think it's helpful for those that are returning to another co-op term, or those that are looking for a full-time job experience, because the Aspire Edge actually dives into more complex skills in tiers 2 and 3, and you learn how to work in a high-performing team, problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, and even skills that you learn as you progress in your job role, like how to be an effective manager. So I definitely think that it's very helpful for students in those situations. But also, what if you haven't secured a job role yet? How can it be helpful for you then? Well, you can actually bring up the Aspire Edge in your interview experience. You can actually, I think this is actually really going to impress employers, because even if you don't have that professional work experience, you can actually bring up the skills that you've learned in the program and how you can apply them in your job experience. And I think that this shows them that you actually took the time to learn those skills. And I think that it can really help you stand out in the competitive job market that there is today. And so honestly, I recommend the Aspire Edge to any student or any friends that I know that are, looking to work in financial services. And, especially if it's their first co-op experience, I'm like, have you started the Aspire Edge? So I definitely really am fond of this program, and I'm so glad that I took it. And I'm definitely going to, take those skills that are definitely transferable for future job opportunities and for interviews. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeneta. I think that is a good way to end this discussion on skills, because I think we've taken it from the hard skills that the sector is looking for, but then we're also helping to prepare students to transition with those hard skills, to be work ready and hit the ground running. So I appreciate you sharing your experience about a skill program that helps to build that soft skill set that rounds out your skill set. I want to circle back. We are almost out of time, and so this is likely maybe our last question. But I want to circle back to this idea of industry academia collaboration, because it is quite a strong concept in Canada. We've been quite successful at it. And so, Mark, perhaps you can close us off with talking about, you spoke a little bit in the first question I asked you about our success with industry academia collaboration, but what would you add? Can you give us an example of innovation that's happening in this country as a result of this partnership, of this collaboration?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sashya. So I think, first of all, the connections with industry really allow us to have students have those experiences that move them away from the idea that business or any profession they'd be entering is linear or black and white. We want them to see that it's actually not that at all. And so that's everything from having program advisory committees that inform our programs, faculty who are working in industry, guest speakers, and so on. And so all of that really gives students these different exposures and touch points where they can really see, what the profession or industry would actually be like. I think the biggest innovation that we're looking at right now, and Kavita and Mike, have talked about sort of in-house programs that they're running, which are amazing and really music to my ears. We're partnering with industry around micro-credentials. So that's sort of moving away from more traditional long, diplomas or degrees to very short, bite-sized programming that would meet an immediate need, in their business. And obviously, we would want to develop those, in connection with industry to make sure it's useful and valuable. And you're going to see governments, putting a lot of money towards this. And I think this will be a new wave in education where those longer programs are definitely important and can provide foundational skills, absolutely. But the micro-credentials will allow students to upskill and keep current, particularly in areas of technology and FinTech being a good example. So for example, we're developing a micro-credential in artificial intelligence right now relevant to the financial services industry that we hope to launch in the new year.
Thank you for that, Mark. We are almost out of time, so I don't think we have time for any more questions. I want to thank you all. I think we've told quite a fulsome story with respect to going from student attraction through to student preparation and what we're doing in Canada to help our post-secondary students transition, but also to grow the pipeline of financial services talent. That ends our session for today. Thank you for joining. That concludes the World FinTech Festival in Canada. We hope you enjoyed learning more about Canada's innovation ecosystem. If you have any questions about any of our sessions, please reach out to Toronto Finance International by visiting tfi.ca. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining today, and audience, thank you very much for joining. Goodbye.